Hi, hello, and welcome to Rebel Unicorn Crafts. You might start to see a little bit of a pattern on this channel. I'm finally getting over some of my art fears in testing super nice supplies. I recently did a review on the Arches paper, and I also splurged because I had a gift card from my birthday about a year ago that I wanted to use, and I bought a few tubes of Daniel Smith Watercolor. You know much about watercolor, you know that this is one of the gold standard paints, and I've been a little afraid to purchase it because it's so expensive, and I didn't know if it was worth it for me. But I did go ahead and splurge, and I bought these colors, and I'm so excited to get swatching on these. I actually did swatch on my birthday. It was my little birthday present to myself, and I got a phthalo blue because that is my favorite color, and it did not disappoint. This is so gorgeous. I can hardly understand it. It's the perfect phthalo blue. I do like my other phthalo blues I have too, but this one just, I was mesmerized by it. For most of my swatching videos, I do these 4 little squares for each color. The first square, I write the name of the color in, and then I do a super pigmented version where I go all the way over it. I want to see what the coverage is like. In the second square, I do a little bit of a gradient because I want to see how it thins out. The third one, I do another full coverage, but then I lift from the top and I drop some water in the bottom. I want to see how well it lifts, and then what happens. Are we going to get backruns or blooms? What's going to happen in that bottom part? The fourth square, I put some clean water in and I let it soak in just a little bit, and then I start to drop in some of the color so I can see how it runs and bleeds and is just what happens with it, because different watercolors have different effects. So I will be going ahead and speeding up the rest of this now that I have shared how I actually do the swatches so that you can get to seeing the colors faster, because I know that's what you're here for. When I was shopping for these, I wasn't entirely sure what to get. I was a little intimidated by the prices, and so I knew I wanted to get a limited set of them. But I wanted to do a couple things. One, I wanted to get my 2 favorite colors, phthalo blue and quinacridone magenta, because they would be a good baseline for me to test, but then I wanted to get a couple other colors that I had not actually heard about before. So one of those was this, which is the quinacridone purple. I had never heard of that color before, and so I was super curious. I was quite pleased with this. I always like to have a purple and a green in my color palette because I do find them to be some of the hardest to get a really nice, vivid color to mix using other colors. So I like to keep one in my palette, and this is a really nice violet for a base, even if you're going to mix it with other colors. Next came the quinacridone magenta, which is one of my favorite colors to use. I typically use the Core brand, and while this one is super nice, I would recommend this color. I do think the Core one is better. I don't know if it's better, but I like the color of the Core one better. It's a little brighter, a little bit more pink, and I think that the pink color is really difficult to get with watercolor, so I'm probably going to continue using my Core one. I will definitely use this color, but in cases where I want a nice bright pink, I won't be switching over to this one. Next up was the yellow. You always need a really good yellow in a set of colors, and I had never heard of this before. I think it's called New Gamboge. So I had zero expectations as to what it was going to be, and this is a really nice yellow. It has a little bit of kind of red hues in it. It's closer to maybe a permanent yellow deep, but I really do like when it thins out here how much it does go to a brighter yellow. This might be one of my new favorite yellows. Now, one thing I do want you to notice in all of these applications is in that 4th box when I'm dropping into the wet area. These move so stunningly. I have never had watercolors that move quite like this. Some of my watercolors move really nicely, but this is where I think these really stood out, is how much they move and flow and have these really interesting effects in the wet on wet applications. The final of the actual colors I got is a green, and again, as I said before, I think it's hard to mix up a super bright green, so I always like to get a really bright green to have in mine, and this was a phthalo yellow green. I had never heard of a phthalo yellow green before, and since I love phthalo blues, I figured why not, and it is stunning. It's almost neon. It is a beautiful color. The final tube I got was an interference gold, and when it came out of the tube, it was really more white color, and I think that's my bad because interference colors typically reflect off of dark colors more. I just grabbed a gold. I wanted a metallic version of this, so I am going to test this one on just the white paper, and then I put some of that really bright blue or dark blue on there to put it on top of there too, so we can see the different effects with it. I don't typically get a lot of blooming or lifting effects with metallic paints, but I'm going to try to do it anyways, so that's not really a set expectation I have for this color, but just in case. You can see here on the white paper, you'll be able to see it more once it dries more, but it is shiny. It's not really gold. It does give a nice kind of luster effect to the paper, so I'm glad that I added some of that dark blue to put it on top of so that I would be able to really tell a good difference. And putting it on that blue really does help to show how much of that luster there is in it, and you do get a lot more of that gold coming through. It's not as gold as I would like it to be, but I don't think that's the fault of the color. I think I just didn't choose the right gold for what I was expecting. I was able to get a pretty decent gradient with this, which was a little bit surprising to me because that's not something I typically do with metallic watercolors, but it did work. I was able to kind of thin it out. And it moved pretty nice in the wet-on-wet application. It, not the same as the other colors, but it did move. Now, my final verdict on these, are they worth the money? Yes. They are really nice. These are really, really nice, and if they're in your budget range, I would recommend them. But I don't know if they're worth that much more. I don't know. I would really need to test these head to head against some of my other favorites just to see the difference, to see how they actually stack up against one another and their price points. So you might have to stay tuned and wait for those. Most of these tubes I got were between about $13 and $15 each, so this was a pretty pricey little adventure, and I'm glad that I had that gift card in order to help me pay for it. I will say I am super excited to use these in wet-on-wet applications especially. I'm also really excited about that phthalo blue because I really want to see how this moves with my other colors and just in my paintings in general. I'm excited about those wet-on-wet applications. I don't know what else to say. Have you tried Daniel Smith watercolors? What did you think about them? Are they worth the cost to you? If you want to see more testing videos where I test out different variables for fluid painting, want to see any watercolor tutorials or some other art supply testing, subscribe to my channel. Or if you just want to see some of the art that I create, it's really varied. You can follow me either at Lacey Walker Art or at Rebel Unicorn Crafts on Instagram or Rebel Unicorn Crafts on TikTok, where I make some funny videos as well as some tool talk videos. And I hope that you have a magically creative day.